if you're growing fast, just like we are, you know exactly how hard cash flow management can be. You've got customers to acquire, you've got ads to fund, you've got inventory to finance, especially if you don't want to dilute yourself by raising a round. What options do you have? Enter Wayflyer. With Wayflyer, you can get fast, flexible funding from $10K to $20 million at the best possible rates. No collateral, no dilution, just the funding you need to improve your working capital and help you grow your business. Join the thousands of businesses using Wayflyer to fund their growth. Go to wayflyer.com/pod to learn more.
Cody, I think it was Cody's second time ever going out to dinner in his life with more than a group of three. And it was
definitely first time with a female.
It was people that he just met, me, who him and I just bonded over like possibly getting shot and like robbed because Eli decided to spend $12 on our Airbnb in Miami.
It was a steal.
And like this random place that turns into a nightclub the more that you eat. And I had Cody within 8 minutes of us being at dinner for the first time with each other, laughing to the point where he could not keep the water in his mouth.
Where was this? Was this at that Mediterranean Miami place?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Every time the waiter came over, Shray would just say something. Shray would be like to the waiter, he'd be like, "Hey, like, can you cut this guy off? Like, he's had way too many."
Is that the spot that they brought us? They were like, "What do you guys like?" Yeah. And Cody and I were like, "We don't eat seafood." And the first 12 portions were just straight fish.
Seafood.
Yeah.
Cody,
the worst part, it wasn't just Shray. The waiter started making fun of me too.
Unreal. We're back. We are at episode. Where are we at? 7.
I think we're at 8.
7, 8. It feels like we've been at it for a while. Fuck
all the haters. Yeah. All the haters were like, you guys are going to start a podcast. You're not going to stick with it. Blah, blah, blah. We're on number 8. Eli thought it was like 13, but we're making it through season 1.
Eat it. There we go. But no, this is exciting. We have been, well, I know Shray for a couple of years now. And Cody, Shray, and I actually bonded over staying in a pretty sketch neighborhood in an Airbnb in Miami. More on that in a minute. But Shray and I met. We actually started the same week at Nugs Simulate. Shray was on all things growth. I was the first CX person. We were there for a hot minute. And then when I left to go to Olipop, Shray left to go to Health-ade. Some would say rival companies. Others would say not at all in the same category. Fun nonetheless. So we were together at Simulate. We were then in kind of alternate zones in the beverage zone. And then I went to Jones. Shray started his own thing called Good Peeps, kind of a boutique, kind of bougie moment over there. More on that in a bit. But so we went to Geek Out, Miami. Cody was like, I trust Eli to book an Airbnb. Eli's cheap. He went on Airbnb, looked for the cheapest Airbnb he can find, booked it. We get there. There are roosters outside. Lots of stuff getting sold on the streets.
There were gunshots one night, maybe 2 nights, but definitely one night. Shray was so scared, he like fucking boarded up his room with a mattress. He literally took the extra mattress and boarded up his room. So that's the kind of guy we're dealing with today, guys.
And it was on that trip. It was on that trip, though, that we came up with this idea, right? To start this pod. And Shray's like, I'm in. He was guest number 1. But it took him a couple of months to get on because he's a busy man.
Oh, God.
How about that intro, Shray? Was that just like not the best intro you've ever gotten?
Yeah, I'm sure that everyone's just going to remember the me boarding up the fucking door with the mattress. But let's be clear on that. We both got a text, Eli and I, from Cody at 2 a.m. saying, guys, I'm scared. And we were like, okay, like Cody's just like a he's just like a highly important, high valuable dude. Like, how do we make sure that like we stop the typical Miami
intruder
guy from breaking in? And we had 3 options, which was put the Keurig in front of the door, put 2 hangers on top of one another, or use a spare mattress that had like 13 stains on it because some random people were using it because Eli decided to pick the cheapest B&B in all of Miami. And so we decided on board. So let's get that straight. And that was the same time that Cody then told me that he also has an Indian wife. And then after that, I was like, you're now my best friend, and that's going to be forced on you. So
All of this is true.
And then the worst part is I drive around the corner with Shray because he was staying in Miami for a bit, and like our place was straight up in the hood, and around the corner Shray had a jacuzzi and like a rainforest in his backyard for like $100 extra a day.
Amazing.
that's
Amazing.
Like
well,
like
listen, the jury's still out on whether Eli gets to book the next B&B. Some would say absolutely not.
Some would say not. Yeah, some would say no.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Enough of the intro. Shray, thanks for joining us. What do you guys want to chat about today? Some growth? Some brand? What do you guys want to chat about? What's on your mind?
I think it would be cool. I think a lot of people right now, you're starting to see brands actually get squeezed on the consumer side, where let's call it maybe even 2 or 3 weeks ago, when like gas prices were still, shooting through the roof, conversion rates were still pretty high. Like you weren't starting to see a softening really on the consumer sentiment side from purchasing. There was definitely a lot of like fear mongering going on at that point. But I do now see across a lot of brands, especially from like an engagement and click-through rate side on the advertising front, even though we're pumping out better content than ever, all of that stuff, just it's a general trend across both the retail and D2C, consumers are now starting to really pull back on spend. And so like, how are you guys on the Jones Road side thinking through all of that? Obviously, retention is the new acquisition and all the fun, buzzword phrases. But like, how do you guys look at your P&L, the way that you're managing cash flow, acquisition, stuff like that, going into this new space where you might run into some inefficiencies here?
Here's my take. I said this, I think, on another podcast, but it was really funny when like iOS came about and everyone was like, we've got to focus on retention. We've got to make better creative. We've got to do CRO. We've got to build a brand. Like, it was like all of the stuff that like you probably should have been doing from the beginning. When times get a little bit tougher, it's probably the stuff that like you just have been neglecting because things have been probably a little bit too easy. And I feel like what people say kind of the same thing around a potential recession. Yeah, you just have to get down to the fundamentals. And like I've talked to, people at kind of all levels about this, but yeah, you just have to get down to the fundamentals. You have to manage cash flow. You have to keep, a lean team. You have to really optimize your efficiency across all of your marketing. You've got to really have a real reason for existing. And it's like, well, yeah, like those are all the things that like, if you're not in a bubble, are probably things that you should be focusing on. So not trying to say this arrogantly or anything like that, because there's definitely a lot that can be improved upon, but I don't feel like we're really not talking about the recession. I could tell you probably 1 or 2 times the number of times we've even said like recession or like market in our office, because it's really, we're not focused on it. We're trying to do what we do, which is attract great talent, make great products, give people a great experience, and hope they come back.
The one thing I'd say, Cody, around that is I think to echo your point, we were really fucking spoiled over the last 10 years. I mean, people just threw a bed in a box and slapped on a label and ran Facebook ads. And we've seen that with people slapping on a label on shoes and people drop shipping to $1 million a month. I mean, we've just seen like a wacky spoiled era. And it bred a whole bunch of marketers that were thinking that way, right? Like you were able to start in Facebook ads 10 years ago, run the Facebook ads till $1 million a month, and then kind of sell your business and move on to the next. And we're seeing it both from the business, like consumer, like D2C side, but you're also seeing it on investor sentiment, where investors are like, absolutely not. I mean, you're seeing businesses that are about to close a round, having investors pull out. You're also seeing businesses that are closing rounds way before they need to close rounds just because they're freaking out. So I think you're seeing across the market people flipping out. I think Cody's point is spot on around building a business the way you should have been building a business, not to sit on a high horse, but thinking, both from like P&L perspective, but also around brands. I think, Shray, you and I talk about this often around like just omnichannel, people building businesses that focus on retail as much. And the kind of difference between focusing on retail is you're not just going straight for CPMs, you're also kind of viewing from this holistic brand perspective, which I think is very buzzy. People love saying, like marketers love to, whenever they can't justify a campaign for fucking working, they say, oh, well, it's a campaign, it's a brand mission, which we love. But I think it's giving like the marketers a think differently a time to shine. It's giving retention a moment, which I fucking love. It's like I have seen I mean, there are businesses that are quote unquote cruising that have reached out to me over the last like 6 months saying like, okay, can we talk about retention? I'm like, sir, you've been tweeting from the fucking high rope for the longest time that you're all cruising, and now your Facebook ads don't work for a month and you're all on the retention
Put them
train.
on blast. Who?
And I'm like,
Give us
it's
names.
too late, sir. Spill the tea, right? I'm like,
Right.
it's too late, sir. Like, and we talk about this often around like acquisition needs to be focused on that. Like, this isn't like a retention, come fix it. But I love that Shray just came in and minute one, he just spun the interview around. He's like, who's interviewing who now?
Yeah, we ask the questions around here.
Well, I could
that.
answer my own question that I gave you guys, which is like, this is going to be great, which is I'm very excited for a lot of these like LinkedIn Twitter lords to really be like shaking, when they're sitting down looking at their computers. Because I think, like, to Eli's point and to Cody's point, it's like, I think over the past couple of years, there have been so many brands just built on like Facebook arbitraging that like you have a bunch of these like quote unquote like brand performance digital marketers that like their like full understanding of the marketing funnel is just like, how do we like slap together like customer quotes, like 5-star reviews, and like an intro offer on the
UGC,
the piece of the creative. UGC is the future of the world. And I think that outside of just even operators, but founders, I think what it's going to really open up is that 90% of these brands that are popping off, that are going crazy on digital, that the founders are more focused on their Twitter following than the actual company. I've started to kind of put them into this bucket called like who asked for it companies. It's going to be a bunch of these like finance backed, kind of just like P&L managers who just saw like white space in the category and were able to just like take advantage of some like shortcomings from just like some market advantage opportunities. But when those markets start to dry up, consumers need no longer kind of exists for those guys. And those companies never focused on brand storytelling at once. So it's really like the random companies that like go and pop off and have like a huge TikTok following, a huge Reels following, a Shorts following, just really like pumping on the organic front, and then having, this is buzzy, but really like product market fit, right? Like I think that so much of D2C never actually talks about the quality of someone's product, but they talk about like the number of like emails and texts that they sent out that month being the retention strategy. I think the guys that focused on increasing their prices to consumers and focusing on just like continuously having these like disgustingly high margin structures on their business over the next 12 months are just going to end up dying out because like they were focused more on the P&L than the consumer. So that's my answer to
so
my
you're saying
question.
you're saying getting into Erewhon is not going to ensure a success?
I'm saying I will never say that. I love Erewhon. I spent so much
Shray will keep you alive if you go to Erewhon.
I single-handedly buy all the beverages for all of Erewhon SoCal. But I'm saying that when you're thinking about how all these brands are being built, your consumers are not going to be able to buy 35 things a week, which 12 of those are net new brands that they found on Instagram. It's probably going to be 5 of them. And like 4 out of those 5 of them are probably going to be because their friend sent them a video. They saw the brand on, an ad that was basically just hidden as an ad. It was just an amazing piece of content, or, some like random group chat or like kind of community, let's call it like thread, brought them up versus like what it used to be, which was like, how do you like, fly up frequency through the roof and just like, play the athletic greens model where it's like every single person for 4 months saw this company and they're still being talked about, but even that company now went to 0 on spend for a couple of months on Facebook because they were just like, this is not sustainable.
So what are you actually doing and what are you seeing works? When like if we were to give like very tactical advice, because I feel like we were given some pretty just like high level like so what, tactically what are you actually doing? Are you pulling back on spend? Are you just ruthlessly optimizing? What's that actually look like? Like what are you focused on right now for these brands?
It really matters, and this is like a shitty like, well, it depends answer. But for the brands that, like you said, have their business structure right, like I think a really good example of that, I'm wearing the shirt and I shout it out as much as I can, but Kaged Muscle, for example. Kaged Muscle has one of the most disgusting payback periods and frequencies of product that I've ever seen in my life. Like the company was started by a bunch of dudes who were at bodybuilding.com. They were executives there. And then like, we're like, cool, let's just go make the fucking best quality product that money could possibly buy. We're not going to ever swap out products. We're never going to care about how much margin we're making on the products. How do we make sure that you take this product, you have the best goddamn workout or recovery or start of your day ever? And so with a company like that, the repeat rates are built in just automatically. Like we, even without like the best in class email and SMS structure, like we are having higher LTVs than let's call like 95% of these D2C businesses. And we know like 99% of these like, let's call it like supplement category brands. And so for a company like that, where it's like, it still completely makes sense to scale up acquisition through the roof, we're just making sure that we're attaining customers at a CPA that like works for their cash flow. I'm starting to see like that's really more the conversation that everyone's having on acquisition. It's not simply like what is your CPA, but like what is your payback on that side for a lot of the investment front. But like the things that like continue to be the ROI drivers, the things like Cody that you're saying are like absolute like game changers for the business is like landing pages is something that still everyone talks about, but does not execute well on. Like we've gotten some really killer landers going in the past couple of months that have really just crushed it for a lot of our brands. Two, it's like really on the content side, we've essentially almost fully turned off all the studio creative and have just gotten actors, like just straight up full on actors to make UGC style pieces of creative. And then we have just like really beautiful homegrown, just like review and, you know, product creative. That's like really just doing the storytelling for us. So like, I know that you guys at Jones Roads do this, but it's like, from a content perspective, it's just how do we make stuff that looks native to the platform as much as it can. Like you should not notice that it's an ad, and you guys do a fucking stellar job on that front.
We run some studio too, though. We run a lot of studio actually.
Yeah, on TikTok.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about Facebook. We actually do a little bit, yeah, because to me, it's more about what you're saying in it, and are you actually providing value than what it's shot on. And you know, I think a lot of people don't agree with me on this, but I actually think TikTok is either going to become or becoming a lot less like synonymous with UGC and with iPhone lo-fi stuff. And a lot of YouTubers and even like old school media companies are now transitioning to vertical short form videos, right? Just to compete. And so you're seeing like Masterclass, you're seeing HBO Max, you're seeing all this shit playing on TikTok organic. So it's becoming a little bit more normal to have higher quality stuff chopped up on TikTok.
Maybe here's a different classification of the content then, which is like you have your like traditional old school homegrown UGC. You have your like highbrow, let's call it like shot on like a red camera.
Yeah.
And then you have like your middle ground of stuff that's like, it looks like it could be a YouTube video, and it also looks like it could work on TikTok. And like that, I like still kind of consider it as like more homegrown than that studio, but like absolutely agree with you on that.
It also depends what you're saying, because we're educating and shit like that. If you're just saying buy my shit, I mean, it definitely doesn't work on a red and on an 8K. You know, you have to be able to capture and keep people's attention with really valuable content. You know, regardless of what you're shooting it on. I think that to me that's the most important thing. You know, if you know like Alex Hormozy or somebody like that who's like blowing up on all these platforms, it's like shit quality content in terms of like not putting a lot of thought into it's like on a basic webcam for his YouTube stuff, but is blowing up because the hooks are good and the content is engaging. Versus there are probably people that are shooting 8K who are getting like 400 views on a video, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I think the other thing you're seeing is people repurposing a lot of things in different ways for TikTok. Like they're taking like a TED Talk they did in 1989 and slicing and dicing it. Just almost lost my mic there. Slicing and dicing it to turn it into like TikTok friendly content. Yeah. And I think Cody's been preaching this very often, but I think it's spot on that for TikTok and for Reels, for all of it, it's 90% about the hook. And testing different hooks to make sure it makes sense. But
the hook is huge. You know what I've been geeking out on lately? Like I tweeted about it, but I've become a really big Mr. Beast fan and be watching his videos, and it's fucking crazy.
I love that Cody just found Mr. Beast.
I mean, like in the last year, but I didn't like watch his videos till now. but like I watched like the Colin and Samir.
It's a drug.
Yeah, and I watched like
Yeah.
like a few interviews with him, and like I just love how obsessive he is about the videos. But if you watch the pacing, and it's not just him, like if you watch like Eli, I'm preparing this thing for like our Jones Road marketing meeting tomorrow. But like if you watch like masterclass videos, like they do such an amazing job of just the pacing and like how to not only get, everybody talks about the hook, right? And obviously you need a great hook, but you also have to keep people's attention as well. And you have to constantly be moving. You have to like constantly be doing something literally every like 1 to 2 seconds. And people don't think so. Like people just go and like they just do the same thing all video. But the reason this is becoming so much more important is because now almost all of your content on every platform isn't being seen by people who follow you. So like I'm communicating to our organic Instagram team the way that like, and like reviewing content with them the way that like I used to review it just with our ads team. You know what I mean? There's just less of a difference between ads and organic now because everything is pretty much being shown to people who don't follow you.
What's crazy is, Cody, that a couple of years ago, like the OGs, like the big YouTubers way back, like 3, 4, 5 years ago, like Casey Neistat, David Dobrik with his 4-minute, 20-second vlogs, like it felt like a drug. Like it was perfect for ADHD people to just like every second the camera was flying somewhere, and like Casey, like jumping out of his car, hopping on a skateboard, spinning the camera, like those old school vlogs. Just like I cannot sit through a movie if my life depended on it, but I can watch like 3 hours of TikToks because of the pacing, right? It's like, it just keeps you engaged. And I love, Cody, I love your point around like people not actually having their content seen by anyone that follows them. And discovery is becoming such a huge phase. And I think very, very few D2C brands are actually focusing on organic. They're just like scale pay to the fucking moon.
There's one creator that you guys should watch, and it is this crazy niche, but has blown the hell up. So you guys know how Minecraft
is it OnlyFans?
It is not OnlyFans. You know how Minecraft as a niche blew the fuck up again during COVID on YouTube? There's a creator called Tommy Innit, and he's one of the fastest growing creators on the platform ever. He's like the king of Twitch. He's just an absolute like demon. And he does an amazing job. Mr. Beast is almost like he's almost like a data scientist when it comes to his creative. Like he is the king of like retention, and like he's gotten his algorithm down to a T. Tommy Innit is very similar to that on the retention front, but he still does an amazing job of making it a piece of like art. Like there's definitely like a formulaic, like what like Eli was saying is like every kind of couple of seconds, like look at the pans, look at the cuts, look at the text drop. That is like very druggy serotonin overdose on the Mr. B side. And I think that over time, like he's just scaling up on the audience front and his view through rates. Like, you know, there are some brands that could really take advantage of that. But that creator, Tommy Innit, I promise every single one of you who watches one of his videos, after 10 minutes, you will be hooked. Like he does amazing storytelling, but he takes all of the cuts and the pitches and the sound kind of quality from all these other guys, or the sound kind of the sonic branding, and it is insane. So we brought over a lot of that like pacing and that creative into our content, and it's just changed the game for a couple of our companies.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, these guys, right? If you think about Mr. Beast and top YouTubers, like who are some of the most well-known people in the world and on the platform, you know, and they have a giant audience. People know them, and they're still doing this. They still don't think that they're too good to hook people in, and they don't just get complacent and think that people just watch their videos because it's them. If they're doing that, your DTC brand that pretty much nobody knows who it is, with the ads that's going to people who don't follow you, like what makes you think that your brand doesn't have to do that? And I just feel like the quality of ads is so low because the algorithm has historically been so good that like you don't really, people haven't had to create great ads. And I feel like obviously there's way more considerations, recession proof, but just post iOS, more competitive environments, I feel like making better ads is really a huge component. And I just don't think people are actually making good enough ads. And I think they just, I don't know, long story short, like you have to make better ads and actually study content creators and media and see what they're doing, because they're making shit that people want to watch. And you have to make ads that people want to watch, not just ads that are selling something.
Yeah, that's like you're now running into like there is the paid media like performance guys for the past 6 years that like they were like the second dude to ever buy Facebook ads. They like know absolutely jack shit about making creative. Like they were just like, let's slap a picture of a shoe with something on it, call it a day. And then that like conversation is really being highlighted more. I think a lot of brands in our space really do know that like paid media is now something that like anyone can really do. And then you have this other side of the world where it's a bunch of these like brand marketers that get so overwhelmed by the idea of making an ad or simply make a piece of art for like the sake of the art that like I bet you in the next couple of like months or years, you will get these like brand content strategists that are like the storytellers that are also the data scientists that will completely just kind of push away both of these audiences. And like this will become the new vertical where that individual essentially thinks of your product, your brand as like a creator that's like focused on like retention.
I was gonna say it's probably a content creator. It's probably like a TikToker who gets a real job and like blows up.
Right, exactly. Or just decides to not do that and then get paid way more to just represent the brand on like behalf of their organic following. It's like that to me is going to be more likely the future. Like, I mean, it's no surprise. Like, right, even with you guys on the Jones Road side, like obviously like your guys' kind of like founder story is such a fucking powerful hook for a lot of consumers. Like it's a no-brainer that, we've seen this all the things that like I at least buy on TikTok or the things that I buy on IG are because they did some really fun, cheeky storytelling. That I was like, this is great. Like I think that the one that I fangirl about is Waterboy, that like hydration beverage. And like that's just literally my god, it's literally the best thing. And it's just waterboy.com, I'm pretty sure. Let's see, waterboy.com. It is waterboy.com. It is a super simple website, a super simple landing page kind of funnel. But this dude's creative on TikTok on the ad side is fucking next level. I don't think there's been a single
I can't wait to see it.
There's not been a single ad that I have not watched fully through from this guy because it looks exactly like a piece of creative. He is the founder who's talking about the mission, the why, the reason behind the brand, and then is just like coming up with and like kind of making creative that like plugs into these like weird niches that you would like just be like, how that, like this is just like a normal piece of creative. Like there's this one dude who has like a blood glucose monitor and he like eats something and he like tests how it looks on his blood glucose monitor, and him in this ad calls out that creator, showcases like what liquid IV does to you versus Gatorade versus all those things, and then showcases like what his product does. And it's like you would watch that organically because you'd want to see like how do these other hydration beverages like affect your blood sugar levels. But like at the end of it, you're like, oh wait, this is an ad. This is crazy. And the website is just so simple. But at that point, you're so bought into the story. You're like, I don't actually care what it looks like at all. I'm just going to go buy this right now. Like the actual website and purchase experience. So that's one that you guys should take a look at.
I'm definitely going to. I'm going to try to get retargeted by them. And I bet those are probably just, are they organic TikToks that are sparked?
They are just TikToks that come from the Waterboy account and is literally just the founder, like just him. It might be the founder, it might not be. I actually don't know.
But that's what I mean. That's the future, is like not being able to tell, at least on TikTok, maybe on other platforms, not being able to tell if it's organic or paid. And it's just the same content, because the most important thing that you're talking about is the storytelling behind it. But it's not, because it provides value and it's not just straight up selling. You got no problem posting that organically as well.
It's like the future of all of this conversation. Like everyone talks about like what's your offer, like what's your like intro offer, what's your creative, what's your content, what's your site speed, what's your email and SMS, like all of this is going to move into like what's your like average view through rate on these like ads, and like how is that actually just kind of generating like clicks. Like I don't know how you think about it on the Jones Road side, but like if you see an ad that's absolutely pumping on the video view rate but not necessarily driving as much conversion, like how do you think about that long term for the company and short term when thinking about like allocation of spend?
Good question. So I'll say in general, the content for us that has the better like ADA metrics, so the better like video engagement, does usually convert best. Not always, not 100% of the time does. I mean, we've got this one right now. this top ad on Facebook's got like a 50% hook rate, so 50% thumbs up, 15% average watch time, which is like stupid. It's a long video. It's like a minute and 40 seconds,
crazy.
but it's just Bobby telling a story. So great hook, multiple ways, telling a story about the name of the product and how it came to be, and then educating about how to use it and how to find your shade. We posted organically because, again, it doesn't look like an ad, but it crushes it. I mean, a 1 day click on Northbeam is probably like, I can't say a number, but it's like way above like our KPI, probably 3 or 4 times our KPI. But so usually we find the same. We were looking at some TikToks today, and there was definitely one that had a pretty good watch time, pretty good hook. It was some UGC. It was like a girl in her car with kids in the back. So it was like pretty engaging. It didn't look like an ad. We kind of broke it down, and like the story broke down a little bit, I think. So I think it was a really good idea. I think it was clearly a compelling enough story, but I don't think this is a hard part with what we're talking about. It's not just a story. Not any organic piece of content is going to convert for you, even if you can do stuff to get a great watch time and have it not convert. But it's that middle ground of telling a good story that then relates into your offering and into what your product is. I feel like that's kind of it. It's like, where did that break down? Stories crush it. Fucking love it. But I think that's the future, is content that you really don't know whether it's an ad or whether it's not. What do you think about like statics? Like with all the changes of Instagram and kind of stuff like that, are you using less statics? Are you still finding performance in them just the same?
It's so annoying because we sit here and we talk all day about like video is the future, content is the future, like story, like long, short form. Every single type of storytelling you can possibly do is like the future. Statics still kill it for a lot of our more bottom of funnel audiences. Like at that point, it is really just like a frequency game. But like statics is still just another format of storytelling at this point to us. But yes, it still does an amazing job. Like we have one of our brands that has like a simple us versus them. And right now that thing is driving a 60-cent cost per click. And we've been able to scale that single ad set by like, let's call it like, I'm not like this. We've scaled it by like 10x, and we probably increased cost per click by like 10 cents. And like it's become our like most efficient like traffic driver for one of our brands.
Is that in retargeting?
That's on prospecting.
Is that a retargeting ad?
Yeah.
Really?
And so I think it just depends on how how the static story is being told, right? Like I think especially for something like an us versus them piece of creative, it is just like a very A/B kind of situation where it's like you're going after an audience who's obviously looking for like a swap moment, or like has an understanding of a certain product, might be in the purchase decision between the two, and it's just a simple let's pick this one instead. But in the instance of something like net new to category, net new product, maybe there's way too many options. We've kind of identified that as like the story told consumer will kind of come in and kind of do just as well. But the conversation of like LTV behind storytelling on like video versus static for us kind of breaks down for some of our companies, where like the story for them might have just been.
What do you mean? What
so
do
like
you see?
the idea is like tell a better story and like have more different touch points on the brand side, and like that person will fall in love with like who you are and why you are. But there's
okay. I didn't know if you had data.
We do like a bunch of surveying to kind of like actually delineate between those two kind of customer audiences and like where they came in from. But it really just depends on like the use case, right? Like those consumers that are coming in from like a pure utilitarian perspective of like, this is a healthier swap than something that I would normally take. There is a massive amount of kind of the LTV actually is like the same, if not higher, for those consumers, but like TAM is much smaller, right?
Interesting. I would have thought
otherwise.
I would have thought otherwise. I know one of the first things Eli and I like chatted about the first time we talked was like how customers you're acquiring on different messaging like could be lower. I think like more of a story like at Olipop, right? I don't want to tell it, you tell it, Eli, but you were saying like more of a story kind of got a better LTV versus some other messaging.
Down to Chat is brought to you by swag.com. We are going to be talking more about employee retention in this podcast, and I think one of the super important parts of keeping employees is making them feel valued. It's core to company culture. It's core to making people feel welcome. And so many brands pull out this janky old swag that people don't want to keep. Swag.com is exciting because they carry thousands of incredible products from custom tech to apparel like North Face and Yeti and Nike and so much more. Swag.com works with 5,000 companies like Amazon, Netflix, Spotify, TikTok, Google, Apple, and a whole bunch of small startups. What the most exciting thing for Swag, the most exciting thing for me on Swag.com is that you can create these custom gift templates where when somebody joins your company, they fill out a form. They go onto this landing page. I know Cody's a big landing page guy. Hop on a landing page and you can actually, brand this landing page, and it feels like your company's swag selection page, which is absolutely awesome. And you can ship 50 different swag boxes to 50 different addresses on their site. So excited for that. If you use promo code D2C10 at checkout, you get 10% off your first order. Check it out, swag.com. Yeah, I mean, I think more broadly, and I know you were sharing this on Twitter about the people that are running Black Friday ads in fucking July and not looking at the LTV, but saying that it's crushing. Yeah, I mean, we've seen ads that were more education focused instead of like just gorgeous pour shots that did a lot better LTV wise, because those gorgeous pour shots look amazing and got people to purchase it, had no idea what the fuck they were purchasing for $36 for a 12 pack. And then they got it and they were like, this isn't better tasting than a Coke. What did I just do? Versus the people that, we added a little bit more friction and educated them about like us versus them. And why should you buy this? And why is it great to have a diverse microbiome, et cetera, we're just better on the long term. And I think the other thing to kind of add to this is like, not every single business in the universe needs to kind of hardcore focus on the super, super strong LTV. Like if you have a 97% margin and you could mess around with somebody buying once, or if your product is like a suitcase or a car or whatever else it is where you don't need the repeat purchase. I think what we've seen is a lot of CPG brands that inherently need to have repeat purchases. Like if you're selling body wash or food or anything like that, if you're not focusing on investing in the right customer, you're in big trouble.
I think one thing that like companies tend to forget about, right? Like every single startup, they are the center of the universe, right? And like they kind of look at themselves and compare themselves to death against other companies. But like, let's take the example of a high consumption beverage versus something like, let's call it a supplement. Like just even talking to your friends about this, it's like not rocket science. Most of us grew up having gummy multivitamins, and like a lot of our friends still take those to those days, the exact same brand. Those, some of those consumers might have switched over to a multivitamin that is, better for you, organic, has, all those other ingredients. But like, they're probably not swapping every 60 days or every 2 weeks on what multivitamin they're taking. Like the frequency in LTV is built into some of those products. Whereas like, if you're looking at something like an Olipop or a Health-ade or stuff like that, there are a million beverages on shelf and maybe 35 that come out every single day. And so like the brand loyalty is like inherently less there. So you really need to focus on that storytelling, because when there's a million choices to be had, like you need to be the guy that they pick on shelf. Whereas like other products and categories, like you don't necessarily need to be maybe doing that as much because of the way that consumers actually just inherently use your product. So I think that's one thing for brands to kind of think about is like, which of those two are you? And like lean into like where the consumption frequency is, and just talk to your friends about it. Like you don't need to look at your LTV data.
So what would you do? Let's say you were working with a brand in both of those examples, supplement that is just a multivitamin versus something completely different, whether that's like a kombucha or an Olipop or something. How would that affect your strategy, your acquisition strategy? How would that affect your retention strategy?
Yeah, I mean, like in the instance of a supplement, right, the TAM is absolutely massive. Like every single person in the world is taking a supplement. And so when you're looking at supplement brands,
I don't think that's the case. I don't know if that's the case.
I'm going to hit you with the hard.
Everyone in the world?
Well, let's try this. What percent of people take a supplement in the US? So 57% of consumers use a dietary supplement in the past 30 days. That's my quick.
Oh, we're talking US now. Okay, we're talking.
Let's try US. All right, we could do worldwide, but right. Whatever.
It's changing the playing field.
Cody, you're right. I'm sorry. Apologies. Let's call it let's call it the US consumer or whatever it is. And so
I just didn't want to get us called out about like people being like, oh, not everyone in the world has access to food. How dare you think supplements?
And it still might happen.
Cody's
Canceled?
just making
Yeah.
sure we don't get canceled.
Yeah, that's my job, really.
Amazing.
That's my job on the show.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, let's
All right,
let's
so
think about
proceed.
it, right? So if the TAM of your audience is half of the US and there are 3 million brands on shelf that you're seeing in the retail side, but none of these brands have actually done a good job of ever showing up once on digital, your job really at that point is just show up on digital and really just talk about like the quality of the product that you have, because the decision is much easier for consumer because they're not thinking about every single day what new beverage they should be buying. They're probably thinking about like once or twice like ever in their life, like what supplement should I be buying for like my multivitamin. And so like there you can really go heavier on the actual like product benefits and USPs for like what is inside. Whereas like with Olipop, when there's like, or Health-ade, or, you know, I definitely don't want to just call it Olipop all the time just because Eli's there, but like all these beverages that we've worked on, like the TAM is way smaller. There's not that many people that are buying more than $2 beverages on a normal cadence. And so the number of brands that exist within the purchase decision moment and the number of purchases that are happening per week is way higher. So you have to identify yourself, or you have to differentiate on like awesome storytelling, awesome just like creative that cuts through the noise. Like you really need to stand out. Otherwise you're just going to get lost in the noise, because once I've made the decision once, if I'm not like marketed too hardcore, like I'm out. I'm going to go drink the next thing that's like $8 that tastes great, that like, you know, has some like random new function to it. So from an acquisition.
Also the signaler, right? Like it's a real signal moment. Like you want to be spotted holding one can versus the other. And I think that's hardly spoken about. Like what does that even take to create a brand that becomes a signal for like, hey, I'm a bougie person that likes to drink gas.
And I think that like really matters a lot for like kicking off a lot of the brands, where these brands like die or don't die in like LA, New York, stuff like that. But even when you're thinking about like middle America, where like maybe our creative, our marketing, all this stuff hasn't hit them, like your product has like 6 seconds on shelf to stand out to that consumer. And so like you really need to make sure that you're showing up in like a very unique way. And that's where you've seen it, right? Like a lot of the packaging back in the day used to be very like simple, monotone with white as like all the logos, Coca-Cola's logo, Pepsi's logo, all these guys. And then you've seen this just explosion of color. Like number one, because that's what's crushing it on digital, but two, like those are the ways that you're standing out on shelf. Whereas like if you're looking at a brand or like a product that is like just a simple like supplement where there hasn't been a lot of like iteration and there's not a lot of players in that space, like just the small little tweaks and focuses on just like product USPs is what gets you to win. But like on the retention strategy front, like Eli, you're the king of this obviously, but like on beverage, high consumption beverage, you are fighting for space and shelf every single day. Whereas like the consumer that's buying the supplement is like looking for a good mix of like, hey, tell me enough about this where I know what's going on. Most people don't really care about the super nit and grit of like which vitamin A are we using versus vitamin K. But really just like make it valuable to me where I'm a consumer longer term, where like actually like promoting or discounting or bundling actually works better for that consumer, because that's how they perceive the function of that product. Is this something that gives me utility, or is this something that brings me fun? And like those two things are two very different messaging strategies.
I dig it.
Yeah.
I dig it. All right, let's chat landing pages real quick. What are some things that you've tested? Like, what are kind of some things you've learned? If you wanted to like leave people listening with like a few like tactical takeaways that they should be testing.
So for brandy brands that are, and that's my term that I'm debuting on this podcast. Mm-hmm. For brandy brands, the guys that really like are lower margin, really bright colors, maybe had some studio that everybody's used, or you know, kind of homegrown. Those storytelling landers, the advertorials, the listicles, the white listed, here was my experience with the product pages. Those have just absolutely smashed it for us on like first touch point. Like the time on page, the read rates, the click through rates, the scrolling down to the bottom, like it is crazy for those brands. And like we found that like going like deeper in the funnel with like the new product offers and those types of like in-depth landing pages where it's essentially just like a a spruced up PDP has like worked deeper in that funnel. But in terms of like driving high enough volume of top of funnel intent, the storytelling really works for those brands. But if we're like a product that is more utility in the way that the consumer thinks about it, PDPs with an intro offer, product benefits, some reviews has like really like just done well. Like we actually, shout out to Nick, we use hooks to help us on like the Kaged front for building our first set of in-depth creative or landers. And then we then took those guys and iterated on them, like just like no other on that in-depth page. And like from a utilities lander, as I'll call it, that's like now 4x what our PDP conversion rate is. And then like the listicle, storytelling, all of that stuff, we've just built those internally. Those are super easy to build. And those have been doing massively well for us. So yeah, like on that front, you could just go to our Facebook ads library and click on our ads a bunch of times, and you'll probably find all the landers that we're running at that point.
Yeah, pretty much the same though. Pretty much the same, definitely. I mean, I guess I'd have to think about kind of where beauty fits in that, but definitely storytelling stuff is crushed. Advertorials, listicles, but kind of our, we call it the Trojan horse, but just like a general kind of like product lander that has like all of your information on that page that then leads to wherever you want to lead people to. Like we talked about on a few episodes ago, like, yeah, you test it, but definitely test landers for PDPs, because for most people, PDPs are going to suck. Bounce rate is, I was kind of surprised how much higher PDP is compared to landers. You find the same?
We're having the same thing. We're also finding that since our landers most of the time are being hosted on like other like third-party content management sites, load speeds are better, conversion rates just naturally increase as a result of that. Or like it's way easier for us to just go and like test everything out of existence out of changing your PDP. And like found that you can make more mistakes there without feeling like you need to be super precious about like brand expression, and kind of use your landers as like a, hey, are the things that we think that consumers like, things that we tell each other that consumers care about our brand and product, are those actual points of differentiation and interest for those guys or not? And then like go make your updates to your PDPs after.
I like that. So what's your order of testing things on a lander? Say you got like that utility lander or something. Like, how are you thinking about running split tests, and what are some like the highest leverage tests that you?
So Google Optimize is our best friend. Like that, we use that across every single test that we're running. And so what we start off with is that we go single products in our ad set level or in our campaign level, depending on the brand and adjacencies. And then we just split them all into Google Optimize. So I will actually at first go and test out as many buckets of landers, listicle, advertorial, whitelisted influencer, all of that, split the traffic up, let it see who wins, and then add in like 4 or 5 different pieces of creative into that ad set, see how that performs at scale. Because we found that like as you start to mix in some different pieces of creative, you start to see some deltas and fluxes across how the performance operates. But like
that's a good idea.
After let's call it 1,000, 2,000 purchases across that test, like it's pretty obvious who's winning for you at that point.
But let's say then, like, so I totally agree with that. Like testing bigger things, test different types of pages. That's how we're doing it too. Let's say then you have just like a standard lander and you're like, hey, this lander is good. It's converting at 3%. I want to take this to 4%. Like, what are you looking at? Are you starting headlines? Are you going messaging? Are you testing? Like, what's your process?
It is all on how the heat mapping is showing us the points of kind of stop and click. Like what we're looking at is like, where are people stopping? Where are people clicking? Let's optimize those moments. For some brands, they might just swipe through the hero like immediately, and we'll go straight into like kind of like an in-depth section of the web page. And so we'll really focus on like iterating. Is it icons? Is it copy length? Is it colors, things like that. And then like from points of click, is it that people are clicking and we need to optimize the offer, the way that we're showing like our flavors? Is it like the discount? Do we need to add a little like animation to those guys? But like Hotjar, as boring as it sounds, like going back to like fundamentals, like it really has helped us like optimize kind of everything for us.
Beautiful. I love it. Yeah, I'd say similar. I could definitely be better about that. Like, I think like we'll have pretty good performance, and we're probably not testing like variables enough. We'll test like the types of pages. We'll test creative a ton. How big of a lever is that of testing like all those variables on a page? Are you seeing like huge increases, or are you seeing more of the effect coming from types of pages?
So types of pages is obviously what gives us like the first, like which, directionally, which are the guys that we're operating, or, which are the three that we're touching and kind of like optimizing from. But in terms of like after that, what's providing the highest impact, number one is actually design. Like we found that, and it's such a spread shot here. Like some brands, the more creative the page, the click through just kind of skyrocket. And then like for some of our sites, like we're just having a white background, beautiful image, and like great clear CTAs has helped us. From there, it's then text. And then from there, it's like offers, like are obviously like a no-brainer, simple, change 15 to 20. But it hasn't been a huge lift for us.
You know what we should test? We should test like here are 7 reasons why you should like Twitter thread hooks as a landing page. Like 7 reasons why my business has changed in the last, or like 8 reasons why you'll gain 20,000 followers from using this Kaged powder
Service.
Yeah. I just think like it works so well. Like people hate on it, but that shit works.
Yeah. 7 reasons why you should use Kaged. DM Kaged for discount code.
If you enjoyed this landing page, please reshare it and follow for more landing pages. I think it would crush.
Exactly. Smash the like button.
On that note, I know you have a hard stop.
I can go a few more. Let's do like rapid fire, a few more questions for Shray. What do you got? Let's do a few more questions. Anything else you got, Eli?
He's muting himself, or he's not, or he's trying to figure it out.
All right.
Or the new expensive mic that he just bought. So
Shray, I know that you're working a lot with companies that are, large part retail. How are you thinking about tracking that? As somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience, definitely pretty much very little experience kind of working with omnichannel brands, how are you going about tracking that and kind of trying to understand your performance?
I know this one. Vibes. I unmuted for that one.
Thank you for showing up. It's of course a helicopter decides to show itself right now. One's like, Jesus, they're looking for Eli.
Yeah.
But when we're looking at retail, there's a lot of companies that share their velocities. There are a lot of companies, there are a lot of retailers. An example of it would be like Costco. Costco does a fucking amazing job of giving you weekly updates per store, how much your product is getting pulled off of shelf. And so when we've gone and done these like retail marketing, kind of supported campaigns on digital, like velocity and rate of sale is all we give a shit about. Okay. And what we then do with our data teams or external data teams, because a lot of these companies on the food dev side have these consumer insights managers that are like not really doing that much work and having like a lot of fun.
Shout out Ed,
like we pull
doing
those
a ton
guys.
of work and not having any fun.
Mm-hmm. Shout out Rick and shout out Riley from Health-ade that are now at Orgain and Liquid Death.
But I mean Nielsen and all those other
IRI,
folks.
Yeah, like Numerator, all those guys. What we do is that we use Numerator to tell us who the consumer category is, who's buying within our market and who's buying just the total category. We then look at the basket affinities, and all of those like old school targeting metrics actually go into our Facebook, IG, TikTok when we go and push on the retail front. From there, we're then looking at, okay, how many Costco's are in San Fran? What is like the population density of those guys, and what are we doing from a CPM's perspective? And then actually hitting a high enough frequency on that side for it to actually make sense during these short tests. And then looking at what are click-throughs, what are engagements on, time on page, things like that. The higher those go, those actually have typically just led to better like rate of sale. And then how do we like demuddle the data that you get from like, okay, you did this test in SF. Did New York also have
so you're doing geo holdouts?
Was it a category thing?
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then we expand things into regions and then into the total US as they like build that momentum.
Awesome. Super cool.
I have a question now that I'm not on mute. So it turns out I wasn't on mute on the actual computer. This is how great I am with technology. But I I touched around on my mic, and there's like an actual like hard mute button on the mic that I pressed. We're doing well. The question I had, rapid fire, why did you build your own instead of joining another brand like an Eli would?
The honest answer is I'm an awful employee.
I can see that.
Like
I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say same.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the biggest thing is that I love, and this is super cheesy and I don't give a shit. I love the output, the work, the like looking at what's going on. I hate corporate bullshit, team dynamics, politics. And for the brands that we're trying to have a lot of that impact with, the brands that have kind of figured out their product market fit, are larger teams, things like that, like it makes so much more sense to touch like 30 cool businesses at once versus touching one, cool business at a time. And then like trying to just kind of like take those learnings into the next company and be that guy that's like, well, when I was at my last company, we did this and it worked. Where what we're able to do is really be like category leaders and like really just like marketing owners for a lot of these businesses and just do the good work that like we know these brands need. And we just partner with the people that like let us do our thing. So that's been the thing. It's like, it was either join another brand, which, there's, oh my God, there's a fucking spider there. It's join another brand and like join either early stage enough to where you're doing everything and doing nothing, join a later stage business where like half of your time is like selling in your idea to like 35 people, being a consultant, which is great, but doesn't have scale, or the like tertiary option is like building my own brand, which we all know how it is going for a lot of our other friends when it comes to this time right now. Or fourth, it's like, why don't I just go steal a bunch of my best friends that are fucking animals and wizards in the space and just then like get them pumped up about doing cool work, focusing on the good work, and then having a lot of fun and doing high impact marketing. So like that's what Good Peeps is at the end of the day, which is just like, as cheesy as it is, it's just like good people doing good work and like everyone's having fun doing that.
And fun fact, Shray was trying to loop me into Good Peeps, and then Cody hired me, and it's been kind of a story since then.
Nothing is a forever thing.
Shut up. Cody's gonna have a podcast.
Delete this recording.
But, yeah, but it's been
Shit,
it's honestly been fun to watch. I think yeah, right. I think it's been fun to watch for me because a lot of this agency shit is just like people messing around versus people actually having a good time doing it. And you can kind of tell from the work they put out that these are just good people having a good time. I mean, agency has quite the rap of there being a lot of just like annoying actors in the space. So it's great to have people that are just like actual operators that like have built, like Shray ran digital at Health-ade, which is arguably one of the largest brands in beverage today. And I think it's like he's doing the same thing with Flying Embers and the same thing with, like other brands in said space versus a lot of, not going to name any names, agency operators that have never had a brand and are just doing a lot of Facebook ads. And now they're struggling because Facebook ads aren't Facebook adding the way they were. Yeah, we almost lost you there.
For the sake of this podcast, could you just give us one name?
You're trying to blow this thing up.
Yeah, seriously. Huh? I mean, Eli, come on. Like, it's the end of the podcast. Nobody's probably listening by now. Just say it. Just say it. True. Just name them.
It's probably true. I love that you think of all the people on this podcast. Eli's going to be the one to drop it. Like, I'm the most like I want everyone to love me energy in this room right now. But hey.
Get off of the shit posting IRL, like the way that I describe it is like I ended up just having to build an agency because all the other agencies that my friends were working with were so shit that I was like, just give it to me at this point and like let us just go do what we need to go do. And like that's really like what we've ended up building. Like the goal of this is like not to necessarily like position ourselves as an agency like long term, but it's really just like we are just a group of nerds who like if you want to work with us, we'll blow up your business, and like that is it. But I don't want to use like the words of like collective and studio. So I think that where we're going to end up going is just like a group of nerds is going to be the new term that we go for.
I was actually trying to get Good Peeps for my own LLC, and it was taken. So I had to do Good Vibes, and Good Vibes was actually also taken. I had to do Elite Vibes.
Isn't it Elite Vibes?
Yeah, and it's like Eli, Elite. It was kind of but I was about to come steal your Good Peeps just because. I guess like an LLC is just me, so it's just a good peep.
Yeah, it doesn't ring as well.
This would be kind of cringe. Yeah.
Someone hires you, they're like, "Where are the other peeps?"
Dude. Just one peep here. Lord.
Single peeping.
Yeah. Lord have mercy. Well, it's been a pleasure, dude.
Hell yeah. Thanks, boys, for having me on. Honestly, I was like, this will probably be the most fun podcast of the month. No shame to everyone else's podcast that's coming out this month. Good.
Wait,
like, good.
Do you want to shout out your Twitter on the route to 1,000 followers or what?
The fact that you know my follower count too.
We're on the way. We're pushing him to 1K.
Yeah, you should follow. I have to look at what
Shray Joshi. Right?
It's actually Shray VJ at Twitter, Shray Joshi, LinkedIn,
Shray BJ.
And then check out Good Peeps or thepeeps.co if you guys want to.
Thepeeps.co. Wait, is that new?
Ooh, that is.
Okay, it's kind of hot. Wait, this Good Peeps logo kind of looks like it can be a snack too.
Well, goodpeeps.com is owned by a dude who's backpacking across the US.
Classic.
And I'm not gonna take that from him. So the Peeps is
doing work with Chomps. We love Chomps.
We love Chomps.
Fly by Jing, Flying Embers, Kaged, Gigantic. I mean, a lot of biggies here. Okay.
All the good ones.
Incredible. And the color, the kind of like this website is solid.
Amazing
content.
Yeah,
I forgot to mention this. I'm gonna let this be said here is Eli's personal wardrobe is what inspired the brand tone palette for Good Peeps. I was like, how do I get a mixture of Mad Happy, Kanye West, and Eli? And like that's where we ended up.
Can you tag me on the bottom under Good People?
Do you want?
When you click, I want when you click Good People, I want that hyperlinked and it just send them directly to like
just your IG.
My Twitter. Yeah, either way.
Done.
And you can kind of link Cody under Good Times.
Another tenant is that we don't lie.
Fine, put him under Good Work.
Record over.
Dude, it's 7:15 p.m. We've made it. Hustle.
I want to talk about one point how I got Cody to spit the water out of his mouth.
We're still recording, so all right. I got to go in a minute, but we'll just let it roll for a little bit. This will be like a special surprise for anyone who makes it this far. Tell the story real quick.
I think what you do is that you take these into shortcuts that like are at the front, like we talked about the hook, and then that leads into the podcast.
You hear that, Matt?
Okay.
The best story that I have with Cody was that I think it was Cody's second time ever going out to dinner in his life with more than a group of three. And it was
definitely first time with a female.
It was people that he just met, me, who him and I just bonded over like possibly getting shot and like robbed because Eli decided to spend $12 on our Airbnb in Miami.
It was a steal.
And like this random place that turns into a nightclub the more that you eat. And I had Cody within 8 minutes of us being at dinner for the first time with each other, laughing to the point where he could not keep the water in his mouth.
Where was this? Was this at that Mediterranean Miami place?
Yeah, it was. Every time the waiter came over, Shray would just say something. Shray would be like to the waiter, he'd be like, "Hey, like, can you cut this guy off? Like, he's had way too many."
Is that the spot that they brought us? They were like, "What do you guys like?" Yeah. And Cody and I were like, "We don't eat seafood." And the first 12 portions were just straight fish.
Seafood.
Yeah.
The
worst part, it wasn't just Shray. The waiter started making fun of me too.
Unreal.
All right, I gotta go. My wife's gonna kill me.
Okay.
All right.
Been a pleasure.
All right.
Thanks,
guys. Peace.
All right, boys.
Cheers.